I just went on Piers Morgan, which I mentioned on the main show. And right after that, I was rushing to wrap up that show to hop onto Piers Morgan's show, Uncensored. And it was the worst experience. I think in terms of like, did I get a good moment? You get a good moment, get a good clip. Which seems to be the priority for most people. Me. Sometimes on those sorts of panels. Because what am I accomplishing? Maybe some of his audience gets won over. Maybe. But the best part is to then later talk about it with all of you. Honestly. Let me be honest. And yes, I did get some good, what I thought were good moments. And I think I represented my argument well. But like 90% of the show was the most boring conversation I've ever heard in my entire life. And it hasn't come out yet. I'll cover it when it does. You know, sometimes I'll say, go watch the whole debate because we don't have time to cover every clip. Don't go. You don't have to go. Most of the debate is me like this. Completely tapped out and bored. They're talking about, I don't even know who the people on this panel were. Just a bunch of random people. Being like, should athletes speak about politics? Should the Olympians have spoken about politics? And then Piers is like, they shouldn't, but I sometimes like when they do, and I agree with it. What is that? To which I said, no one actually thinks there should be a societal rule. And I don't mean a law, I just mean like a cultural norm that you don't talk about politics if you're an athlete or if you're a musician or a celebrity. You just use that principle to shut down their argument when you don't really want to contend with it. So what do I mean? Whenever it's Billie Eilish making a point, which by the way, the wording that she used, the whole like, you can't be illegal on stolen land is just like a bad way to make that argument. I loved all the people at the Grammys calling out ICE, saying ICE out, speaking to the lives that have now been lost because of the insane actions and all that. Your average American, I'm just telling you, you don't have to like this. I'm just telling you, your average American goes, you can't be illegal on stolen land. What the hell does that mean? And then it's easy to make the point of, Billy, are you going to give your house up to like Native Americans? That doesn't really. So I'd encourage people not to use that particular phrasing. It doesn't resonate with people very well. And again, it's just the underlying substance of it is a sort of incoherent point. But the broader ICE out, calling out the actions is great and important. And people, if they're upset with Billie Eilish, instead of going, here's why I think her argument at the Grammys was bad, they'll just say, here's a principle I have, which is as a celebrity, you should just shut up and do music as a musician. Or if you're an athlete, shut up and dribble. It's not actually something anyone believes. No one believes that. Because every time someone says something very inspiring that you agree with politically and they're a celebrity, you love it. MAGA loves whenever Nicki Minaj says something political or Kid Rock or whoever. The only principle we all have is we like it when they say stuff we like and we don't like it when they say stuff we don't like. Pretty obvious, pretty easy principle. So I explained that to Piers Morgan. I was like, I'm not hypocritical on this like you are because I just think everyone has a right, and I think it should be fine for athletes and celebrities to speak their mind if they feel called to. And I also think it should be fine if they choose not to on politics. And sometimes I think you can judge them for not speaking out, but that's all just that's fugazi. That's just life. Everyone can speak out. You can be upset. They can not speak out. You can be upset they don't speak out, or you could be happy they don't speak out. But you act like sometimes it's because he's afraid to take issue with what the Olympian said. Because he's seeing the winds blowing against what Trump is doing with immigration enforcement, against Trump's administration more broadly. And so to get out of having to explain what it is you disagree with what the Olympian said, which was a very vague statement about I want us to return to compassion, and I'm not representing everything that's happening in the United States, but I'm representing what I love about the United States. Beautiful. That was the general sentiment. He can't really find much issue with that. So instead, as a way of denouncing it, he goes, I just think it's not their place to speak on politics. And when you're at the Olympics, it should be a societal norm that you just stay away from politics. Like, shut up. Just say you don't like what they said. Or maybe you do like what they said, then say that. Or you could just say, I'm uncomfortable with it in this case. But no one actually has that principle of not wanting celebrities. So that's the main point, but a lot of it was just him saying, I'm sort of hypocritical, I guess, because sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't, but I don't really want them to do it here. And then the next panelist, whoever from wherever, was like, oh, I also think that sometimes it's bad and sometimes it's good, but I think that, maybe they should stay out of politics. And then the next panel was like, yeah, I think maybe they should. And it's just like, that's how I felt. And you can see it on my face. Ultimately, then think about this. So then they go to me and I'm like, yeah, I liked what they said, so I liked that they said it. Then Piers is like, well, we have a little extra time left in the show. What should we talk about? Any of the authoritarian actions of the Trump administration? Any of the economic failures of the Trump administration? Any of the policies like ripping away healthcare for low-income Americans and serving the elites? Should we talk about that? No. What should we talk about? Trans people in sports for the 500 billionth time on Piers' show. So then I kind of lost my cool a little bit and was saying, really? I gave my stance, just so you know. I'm not afraid of saying, especially high-level leagues, I have no problem with them implementing, based on whatever the sport is and whatever restrictions would ensure fairness, limiting restrictions. That's fine. And the reason I say it that way as opposed to like an all-out ban is because I've heard convincing arguments for if you tracked a certain transition level where they lose all their advantage of male puberty, of biological male puberty, then they can compete. Cool. Like, this is not my area of expertise. If you got a rule, keep it fair. If that limits some people from participating, okay. Yes, male puberty gives you some advantages, especially early in transition. Okay, cool. Move on. And they're all just sitting there like, oh yeah, it's so bad that, oh my gosh, this trans woman participated in a sport. Oh, really? But that's bad. Another person said, really? Well, that's bad. Another person like, really? Well, that's bad. What are we talking about? You're all just like this. That's you. I'd like to do something a little bit more productive, please.
Many of them came numerous times.
So many times. My gosh. Do something with your life productive. Do you know what's going on? And then one of the panelists, and I wish I knew the names, I don't know. This guy from there, that guy from there, that guy from there. One guy who looked like he was so proud to be on Piers Morgan for the first time in his life. He's like, oh, well, I've made it. It's freaking Piers Morgan's channel. Oh, he has a YouTube channel. Guess what? What's new? We all have YouTube channels. And he's like, oh, well, I think blah, 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 blah. Nothing productive. So I kind of expressed that. Hey, yeah, I'm not avoiding the issue. I just gave you the take. Very level-headed. Some people say I'm the most reasonable on it. But also I think it's shameful that you choose to distract from the guy you helped get into office's failures and catastrophic foundational democratic assaults by going back to the one issue you feel like you have an edge on. And it's salacious and it impacts almost nobody's life. So I said that, and then Piers was like, well, the wokesters, he brings this up here. Well, did you know in the 2024 campaign, the far left was toxic, so that helped Trump win in office? Yeah, cool. What are you going on about? Yes, I know. Some people had bad, toxic political rhetoric, and it harmed us, and Kamala Harris wasn't too far left. Can you imagine? She's like holding hands with Liz Cheney the entire campaign. Was not too far left. Refused to talk about anything identity-wise. But, okay.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Okay. But because of the impression of certain random college students or certain institutions, and this is real, some institutions getting too wacky and funky, that alienated people. And then the one panelist said, and this, I almost just threw my Diet Dr. Pepper at the camera. He said, well, did you know in the campaign it was really effective, an ad that Trump ran that said Trump is for you and Kamala's for they, them? I don't care. Are we not past that onto something a little bit more significant? In this show, we're talking about, well, back in this year, Michael Jordan decided not to speak on politics, and I think that was interesting because of What are we doing here? You're doing the show mere moments after Pam Bondi had a catastrophic hearing where she's being exposed for lying about a cover-up of a child sex trafficking ring. We could talk about that a little bit. Oh no, we have to spend 30 minutes as Luke nearly falls asleep discussing our stance on whether or not athletes should be encouraged or not encouraged to speak about politics. Something that's literally a non-issue. Like and Piers kept saying, a lot of Americans are upset. Shut up! I don't do the whole, you're not an American thing. I think a beautiful part is that people move here and then they build a show and they give their stance. They have the First Amendment. I like that. But it is a funny thing to be like, don't tell me what we want. Piers. He might be a dual citizen. I don't know. And mad respect to that, of course. But it's just a kind of sexy point to be like, really? Don't tell me what my countrymen want. That looked weird. I was not doing anything weird. I was just bouncing up and down. And he kept saying so many people are upset with the fact that Olympians during press conferences are saying that they don't represent every single aspect of what the U.S. government's currently doing, which is like the most obvious statement ever. Which I haven't seen that many people upset about it other than right-wing Twitter because they didn't like what the people were saying. But if they were saying something they agree with, they would love it. So this is stupid was my main point. And I did this at the end. So I made a point that you know, I think if you had AI analyze it, it would go, brilliant point. And so I made that point, and then Piers just starts saying a bunch of random mumbo jumbo, like the American people sided with Trump. Do you know that? Yeah, I know. What? Of course I know that they sided with Trump in the 2024 election. But I made a different point, which was, but if you're saying that I for some reason am wrong about thinking we should care about more pivotal issues, or not even care about, we should care about a lot of issues, but we should spend proportional time on the most pivotal issues as opposed to just the most salacious and culture war inducing issues. And that it was his doing, and people like him, not just him, but people like him, broadcasters like him, who chose to obsess over salacious culture war issues as opposed to the most substantive foundational issues. Like a point I wanted to make, which I didn't get to because he cut me off, was that he spent more time hyping up Trump. I was going to use the phrase sucking Trump off, but I did use the phrase jerking off which I have never done on television. So that's crazy. I'm getting crazy, but I got triggered. So then things came out that I didn't mean to come out. But I was gonna say that it is. It's interesting. You spent more time. It's people like you who helped get Trump into office because you spent more time hyping up his McDonald's stunt than talking about his open declaration that he would have the power to terminate the Constitution. That's a really good example of should we really spend more time hyping up how hilarious and great Trump was serving in a McDonald's after he accused Kamala of lying about working there, which we still don't even know if he was ever true about that allegation, but they act like they know for certain, more than Trump making huge declarative statements about destroying our entire system of government. You're the problem if you're doing that. You're messed up. You don't understand American values if you think Kamala botching an answer is more important than covering extensively Trump's promises to target the First Amendment, to rip it apart, to target media outlets. You're whacked in the brain if you actually believe that was an acceptable way to handle the 2024 campaign. And that was him. That was people like him. So don't go lecturing me that I did so much to help Trump get elected because I was obsessing over how every single boy should become a girl. Didn't happen. He just kept saying things at me that I never said. It was weird. And you did way more to facilitate this moment that we're in than me, who focus on the actual important issues. How many times did I say, but what about the threat to democracy? What about Trump's economic plan? The real stuff that impacts everybody. That was the whole conversation in 2024. And meanwhile, he was giggling away with Dave Rubin about how cute and quirky Trump was in his McDonald's apron. You tell me who messed up our coverage of 2024, Piers. So then he lectures me about how, well, it was the wokesters who even allowed Trump to get into office. Yeah, I get your point, and I'm not saying there aren't any toxic parts of the left. There are. But Why do we never blame the people who voted for him? It's always like, well, you were mean, so then they had to go vote for a guy who said he wanted to come down hard on MSNBC. You had to vote for a guy who didn't have any economic plan, and when economists looked at it, they said it was going to be bad for the economy in comparison to Kamala Harris. You had to vote for him. A guy who's an open authoritarian. Because people were mean, or they made you feel bad for not knowing what non-binary was. Well, toughen up, buttercup. If you love this country, you're able to deal with a little bit of wackiness to save our democratic republic, okay? So then he's saying that. Yeah, well, you did this, you did this, you did this. It's not this whole thing. I have a great comeback ready, right here. Right in my little thing of arrows. So cringe. And I'm gonna do that. That's me when I debate. And I say, I don't get to say anything because he says this whole point, didn't at all address the argument I made, and then goes, all right, that's the end of the show. And I'm like, wait, can I go? And he goes, no, it's my show. I don't have to let you respond. And then he ends the show. So what do? I do this. I walk away. There we go. I walk away. You know why? Because he didn't have time for me to respond to all of his arguments. But he did have time to go, oh, Arsenal is playing whatever football team. You didn't have time for me to respond, but then he started talking about soccer. Ridiculous. You hyped up a sexual abuser who was besties with Epstein. And then he was terrible on policy too. Contend with that, Piers. I say all this with love. Thanks for having me on. It was a good time. No,
There's something wrong with him.
I wish you the best.